Today's guest is someone who has been challenging the way we think about human performance for decades. Before conversations around fascia, force transfer, and integrated systems became more mainstream, he was already exploring how the body truly generates, absorbs, and expresses movement, not just through muscles, but through a much more connected and reactive system. From working with athletes in high-performance environments to building concepts that have influenced training across fitness, sport, and health, his work has consistently pushed beyond traditional models of strength and conditioning. He's the founder behind VIPR Pro and the Institute of Motion, and someone who has spent years asking a deeper question, not just how do we get people stronger, but how do we get them to move, react, and perform more effectively in the real world. What's interesting is that many of the ideas he was exploring 20 plus years ago are only now starting to be understood at scale. Ladies and gentlemen, Michol Dalcourt. How's it going, my friend?
We know this anecdotally. Like if I said to a group of people in North America, if you took a farm kid and they were to wrestle a city kid or a gym kid, and you're a betting person, where's your money? Too much variability is random, or chaos rather, and too little variability is rigidity. And we would argue that rigidity is the enemy of biology. Emerging future. The emerging future is you and I have a digital twin, and it understands our physiology, both past and current, and right now. And with that, we know exactly what we need to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michol Dalcourt. How's it going, my friend?
Tom, I'm looking forward to this, buddy.
Awesome. I want to take everybody back to the beginning. Where did the VIPR Pro come from?
Well, back then it was actually VIPR. So coming out of university, so I went to University of Alberta in Edmonton, and we were training hockey players. By the way, Oilers are out, so that's a big.
Oh no!
Thumbs down, buddy. But it does have application to the story. So back in the day, as you know, as a Canadian, the off season for hockey, 16 weeks, right? It starts around now, depending on when you get kicked out of the playoffs. Or if you're junior hockey, the playoffs are around now. And then usually it starts in kind of late September-ish, 16 weeks, right? So we take all these individuals, these kids and some of the adults, some of the pros, through a 16-week off-season program. The goal of which, Tom, you know very well, to make them bigger, stronger, faster. And so periodized programs, undulating training stressors, mapping it out so that, we're managing allostasis. We're trying to get everything dialed in so that there's an adaptive process that's happening. And then they get into sport, the next October, and away they go. And so we did that. And, our players were getting bigger, stronger, faster. But, when we asked the coaches, the hockey coaches, hey, is there anything we can improve on? Right? Because we talked to them during the year. They'd always say, strength on the puck. And we're like, okay. So next season, got to do some more strength work. So maybe we fiddled with the time frame of strength development, right? So instead of 4 weeks and it's 4 times 4 weeks, maybe it's 6 weeks, and we're trying to increase the amount of strength. And Tom, they were getting gym strong. They were getting stronger. The numbers were going up in the gym, the whole thing. And when we went back the next season, asked the coaches, what can we build? What can we improve on? Strength on the puck. And it took us a while, but we asked the very important question, which is, well, who's beating us to the puck, or who's beating our players on the puck? And it was the farm kids. And it was like, that makes a ton of sense. We all know this anecdotally. Right. And then it was the big head scratcher for us, which is, all right, we know this anecdotally. Like if I said to a group of people in North America, if you took a farm kid and they were to wrestle a city kid or a gym kid, and you're a betting person, where's your money? We know the answer to that question, right? So we all know this anecdotally, but what we were not, I think, fully aware of was what happens physiologically, what happens through the adaptive process when you ostensibly load the way you do when you're doing chores on a farm. And as you know, load is information, nutrition's information, and the body takes that information in through mechanotransduction, and it does something with it. We just didn't know that at the time. We just knew it anecdotally. So VIPR and VIPR Pro, right? VIPR was the first iterations. It's basically a bale of hay in the gym without the mess, is basically what it is.
I mean, it's interesting how that's what you pulled from it. But then, I mean, thinking about how farmers work, they are moving repetitively, but every single lift is not exactly the same.
It's novel.
It's not. It's novel. One bale's a little bit heavier. Oh, they didn't grab the strings exactly the same way, but they still have to lift it and get it. And all of a sudden it creates these little, perturbations in the system. And the nervous system just has to self-organize and figure it out. But now it's got more options to move from.
Yeah. Well, you're right, because even if I was to put, if you and I are stacking bales in a stack, in a haystack,
Yep.
I cannot put the bale of hay in that same spot because the previous bale of hay is there.
Yep.
So inherent within life are these degrees of freedom that are kind of built into the process or the task.
Yep.
And they're not fixed, right? There's a degree of freedom that is kind of expansive. And so when you look at nervous system and how it adapts to new and novel movement tasks, even from the connections, right? BDNF and vascular epithelial growth factor, like these things kind of have this, we like novelty. We like variability.
Yeah.
And so we can got to go down the road of like variability, interesting, right? Nutritionally, people that ate seasonally, right, seem to have better gut flora. Oh, okay. Well, that's variability. Yeah. We have young kids, let's say, and we want to get them to play a lot of sport before they specialize. Oh, variability. Heart rate, right? When you're stressed, there's a more predictive cadence in your depolarization, repolarization of your heart rate. Oh, we lose variability when we're stressed. Interesting, right? Movement choice. Like I have a limp, you have a limp. I've got less movement choice.
Yeah.
I lose variability. So it's think of it as a bell curve. Like too much variability is random.
Yeah.
Or chaos rather.
Yeah.
And too little variability is rigidity. And we would argue that rigidity is the enemy of biology.
Yeah. Because, we want to periodize, like as coaches, we want to structure something that we can kind of continue to build on top of. But at what point does it become too rigid? Like at what point do we add novelty, or when's the right time to add novelty? From your perspective, from a traditional program design perspective, because coaches and trainers are going to be listening to this, where do we pepper in some of the variability stuff? Because they still need to get strong with squat and legs and stuff like that. But where does variability best fit into this program?
It's a great question. Like we had that same question early on, Tom. And what we were wrestling with was, what's the magic trick? Because I need repetitive exposure to something to gain an adaptation.
Yes.
Right. So this idea of overreaching, and then, if there's overreaching and then recovery, overreaching, recovery, your trend line, you're going to get super compensation. You're going to get an adaptive process where your homeostasis is now increased, like that. Your new baseline's higher.
Yeah.
That difference, the set points are different, right? You set a higher set point, and that's the allostasis. Like, can I achieve stability in change, right? Yeah. And so that's okay. How we wrestle with that, because to a certain degree, you need the repetition, but too much repetition, yeah, you get stronger, but then there's weaknesses that you expose because you're strong in one position.
Yep.
And then by virtue of association, you might be weaker in other positions. So how do you ratchet that up and play that game? And we were wrestling with that very same thing. And what we ended up doing is we ended up creating these 4Q models. And I could certainly walk you through them, but these 4Q models, it stands for 4 quadrants.
Yep.
We've got one for neuro-mechanical, we've got one for metabolic, and we've got one for recovery.
Yep.
And what it is ostensibly, it is your movement vitamins or loading vitamins, your metabolic vitamins, and your recovery vitamins, right? And you want to make sure you're taking enough of the vitamins. And so that was a way for us to bring into sharp focus the idea of when do we program the same thing, and when do we venture out and create some variability? Because as you know, if I can create variability, I'm getting more shape stability in my body because of the lines of force are going to remodel in the fascial system. Yeah. If I have better pre-stress, right, which is more that biotensegrity idea, but pre-stress is I am strong in all parts, like I'm almost wearing an internal weightlifting suit. the only reason I can knit that weightlifting suit, so to speak, is by changing the angle of force or changing the direction of load, because that's where the tissue remodels. So the way that, think about wrestling a farm kid. Like they're strong in every position because they've loaded every position and every line of stress. So they're strong. This idea of gaining strength is always a funny conversation for me. And by the way, I had this too, right? It's like I need to train strength by these traditional sagittally dominant lifts.
Yeah.
And while that's true, I wonder if it's universally true, right? Because if I can expose some degree of load, even if it's maximal load in the frontal plane, it's maximal load as I rotate, whatever that may be, I'm going to create this idea of shape stability.
Yeah.
And when I have shape stability, more pre-stress, then as you know, you can only produce as much force as you can stabilize. And if I'm more stable, the prime movers can, they can maximally contract and produce ostensibly more force. So we tried to play that game to say, okay, how do we actually think about this from a mental model? And the 4Q is what we kind of came up with.
Oh, that's super interesting. Coming back to the shape, using the VIPR myself and putting it out away from the center of gravity and feeling the stretch and the tension. And a lot of athletes don't understand, even coaches, that the nervous system is a brake system. And if it doesn't feel safe in a certain position, if you extend and that the nervous system doesn't feel strong or have control of that position, it just shuts stuff down. Like it will create compensations, and all of a sudden we're throwing or doing something into a shoulder that's, not in our best advantage, and all of a sudden we have injury.
Right.
And the VIPR, when you use it, because it's that log, it's that hay bale that we're moving away from our center of gravity, it really focuses on where we develop strength first, which is our center. A lot of the lifts we do, it focuses a lot on the peripheral. Yeah. And from a neurodevelopmental perspective, where do babies first learn to develop strength? On the ground, and they're developing their spine first.
Sure.
And then when the nervous system's organized enough, then it's just like, okay, great, now we can crawl.
Yeah.
Well, we spent enough time here, now we can stack it. And then now we can manage those vertical compression forces. But it's got to organize. But what you've done with your device is you've gone up to the standing position and you've bypassed some of those things. And it's very self-limiting. If it's too heavy, you just can't hold it. Like you drop it.
Yeah.
You can't cheat. It's very hard to cheat that. And if you try and brace, you're just going to gas out and you're going to drop it eventually. So your nervous system's saying, nope, we've had enough. I can't manage this. So therefore it's going down.
Go ahead.
I mean, I came across the VIPR like 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And I understood what it was doing. And because I was I was in the functional training realm of things. And I'm like, oh, like this is training the core and you can move in all these different planes. But then it just disappeared or it just didn't take off. And now it's coming back mainstream. What is it now that we understand? That all of a sudden I'm like, finally, you're getting your day.
You said in your introduction, Tom, you said it perfectly, which is, he was thinking about these things a long time ago. I think there was a lot of folks that were, but that and I'm going to say it this way, the general thought inertia is of a certain perspective.
Yeah.
And what I mean by inertia is if this is just the way we do things, that just tends to prevail.
Yeah.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I still read, some of the classic work of strength. Sure. It's what we could research back in the day. It's very hard to research when you cannot isolate certain variables because you're opening up all this movement. It's very hard for a research study to have any power. The p-value goes way down in that study when you start to open up too many variables. I get it. And so what happens is we take a look at the research and it's extraordinarily efficacious. It is very clear on what that research states. And so we adopt that, as we should, as a pattern.
Yeah.
But biology is very complex, right? And it's very hard to study because biology, as you know, is bidirectional.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm trying to isolate a variable, things are zooming and affecting each other bidirectionally all over the place. And you talked about the spine. Serge Grakovetsky talked about this in his book, The Spinal Engine. He talked about this idea of redundancies. Like the body has a million different backup systems.
Yeah.
To circumvent a certain thing. You called it, when your body compensates. That's one example. Like there's all these redundancies. And so it takes an awful long time to understand certain things from a scientific perspective in order for us to put it into practice. I think just observation of human beings and biology give us anecdotal evidence, which we had with the farm kid. But, only as of late do we understand what happens to the nervous system when we start to self-organize, per your idea of just getting into certain positions, letting the body self-organize via dynamic systems theory, right? So can the body use a task to create the response that it wants and self-organize it within that task? What's happening to the muscles? What's happening to the arthrokinematics? What's happening to the force transfer proteins, right? i.e. the fascia or the collagen. When we start to load in these, I'm going to say odd positions, right? Where we're taking things not just sagittally, but we're taking things and we're loading it in 3 planes of motion. And so, and by the way, the heaviest VIPR we have right now is at 32 kg, so 70 pounds. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if we ever lifted an old school TV or a couch, and it's oddly positioned, the lever end is asymmetrical, it's off the midline, it's at a length, it gets extraordinarily hard.
Yeah.
And yet people get extraordinarily strong when they interact with loads like that.
Yeah. Did you ever have moments where you question whether the industry would ever catch up?
Yeah, for sure. Because we were and it wasn't like my brilliance or anything. No. We just were kind of in a wavelength of thought, like, I wonder if we can train like farm kids. And then we didn't even know the science all in back then. We had to learn it just by virtue of exploring, like, okay, now that we can do this, I remember the first time we made these things, right? So we made them, my dad knew this oil field guy in Alberta that did sleeve pipelines for like oil pipelines. Yeah. And I said, well, you make tubes. Can you make these tubes of rubber, cut some handles out? And he goes, sure. But he was an oil field guy, right? Yeah. So he made these, prototypes for us. And I remember there was 4 of us, my brother, who was a strongman competitor at the time, Simon Bennett and Paul Graham. We would sit in the back rooms of our training studio and just, what can we do with this thing? And at that point, the rule was there was no contraindications. Now, of course, there are in real life, but we said, for this experiment, we're just going to open up our minds and just throw all the contraindications out the window for right now. Yeah. And at one point, we had my brother, who had a nylon webbing around his neck, like on the side of his head, and it was attached to the tube, and Paul was standing on the tube, and he's dragging him with his neck standing up, walking sideways, as this guy's skidding across the floor. Like, it was just, there was no limits. We just wanted our imagination to run wild, and then we would kind of put the guardrails in. Yeah. And within that process, we were starting to realize, like, we can load so many different ways. What is appropriate, but what is going on? Yeah. And because of that, we were so ahead of the curve, to your point. Like, it really took a long time for, I think, the general kind of awareness, or at least the acceptance. And that was relative to a lot of voices that were key, that really started to elevate the idea of what loading in this manner would actually do for the body, nervous system wise, muscles, joints, fascia, etc.
Yeah, so, I mean, we try and draw, we experiment, we come up with new things, we're trial and erroring a lot of things. And when we see something consistently work, we have to draw upon mechanical, neurological models that already exist to better explain what might be happening, right? Until science catches up. But that's true for anything. I don't know how many times when all of a sudden, the research came out saying that X works. Well, we've known about that for 15 years. Like, we've been doing this clinically. And why? Because, 1, it does no harm. And 2, it consistently works the way that we hypothesized that it would work. Sure. But research is here now to validate, so therefore it's true. Like, some people get so fixed on, well, evidence-based. I'm all for that. Great. It validates what we do. But on the other side, I'm also for effective-based. If something consistently works for a majority of people, I'm going to keep using that. And as long as there's no risk of harm, then great.
Well, evidence-based we always say is it evidence-based or evidence-led? And both those things can be interesting. Both those things could be something to follow. We just know that evidence-led is, well, more research is needed. Although you could say that with evidence-based too, because evidence is an evolving process.
Yes.
It's ever evolving. And so what we know now is not what we know in 10 years and what we didn't know 20 years ago. So the idea of evidence-based is causal.
Yeah.
Evidence-led could be correlative. It may be causal. More research, more information is needed. But it doesn't mean that you abandon those things just because the research isn't in yet, right? To your point, if you see evidence of it, anecdotally or in practice, great. But let's just look at how was biology, what was the nature of loading in biology for tens of thousands of years before the gym?
Right.
It was basically like the VIPR, right? It wasn't, Monday was not chest day 10,000 years ago, right? Yeah. It was body day, and you just did stuff with the body and lifted in certain ways. So ask yourself, not you, but we can ask ourselves this question, which is, if biology set itself up for adaptation for tens of thousands of years, knowing that the nervous system, muscles can self-organize in task-based whole body ways in all planes of motion because I got to get the job done, whatever that chore is in life, that is the way that the body set it up for tens of thousands of years. The gym experience is, the last 50-ish years. Yeah. It's a blip on the radar, right? In terms of how we actually adapt. And so what VIPR does, it kind of harkens back to this idea of just, you're going to move the body with load, just like you did back on the farm 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. And people will still debate, well, what's functional, what's not functional. It doesn't matter what the exercise looks like. It's what does it produce?
Sure.
Like, if we could easily say, well, a leg curl is not functional. Yeah, but if it's isolating some weak hamstrings, that's limiting my squat. And if my squat gets better and I can have a higher vertical jump, technically the leg curl was functional because of what it produced, because that one isolation thing that we needed. And
it's so true. Load is information for the body.
Yeah.
If I do nothing but leg curls and my cross-sectional area gets amazing, but my pronation angle of my hamstring muscles starts to increase, well, that may not be conducive to limb velocity that's fast, right? Because we need pronational angles a little smaller. But it's information. And so what do you want to do with that information, and how do you want to express that information? And then what ends up happening is there is no quote-unquote, bad exercise. It's what do you want and what information are you giving the body? Well, then give it more of that information that's going to translate to the function that you ultimately want to have. But at the end of the day, everything is functional for some reason, right?
And I would even add on to that from a clinical perspective, what is the body missing that's inhibiting the system?
Sure.
Right?
Right.
Well, it's finding those small little linchpins that just might be holding back performance and limiting things just from a safety perspective.
Yeah.
With the Institute of Motion, what problem are you most focused on solving right now?
Bunch in there. So with Institute of Motion, we're an applied health and human performance company. So as of late, we're looking at more broad health systems or health asset building, non-clinically. And so we're looking and leaning into solutions and strategies for broad-based health outcomes that are increasing. So it's a much larger kind of conversation than just training applications necessarily. We're looking at key determinants of health at an individual level and at a social level. And we're looking at basically structure and environment and construct, like infrastructure, that we can help create that is basically what we would call health asset building. Because think about it this way, right? If you're thinking intervention or prevention, both of those imply that I'm absent of ill health.
Right.
Which is different than the presence of health and presence of performance, right? Those are different to us.
Yeah.
So how do you build in this world that is built on convenience and otherwise? The diseases of modern societies are pretty common, which is we don't move enough and we do all these things, right?
Yeah.
So how do we build an infrastructure to solve some of those problems? Because it's not going to go away with behavior change alone. Right? Environment dictates behavior.
Yeah.
How do we basically prepare for an environment that is conducive for health asset building, essentially? So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. But within that, there are, logic models, there are technologies that we're building that answer that. And so we talked about this idea of 4Q before.
Yeah.
Right?
Can you go into that a bit?
Yeah, these 4Q models, Tom, are just basically mental models. So in your mind's eye, the listener, if they're driving and listening to this, or if they're watching us, I want you to think of 4 quadrants, right? So a plus sign would have 4 quadrants. A cross would have 4 quadrants, just the top 2 quadrants or less. So we've got one for neuro-mechanical, one for metabolic, and one for recovery. So let me quickly walk you through the first 2. These are extraordinarily easy to understand at a conceptual level. Super easy. But what we would say is they're a mile deep in terms of the science and justification. So imagine, if you will, the neuro-mechanical 4Q. It's a big plus sign in your brain, right? So just imagine a plus sign. And each of the sides of the plus sign is a quadrant, and they're all equal in terms of size. So the line of the plus sign that's going up and down, the y-axis going up and down, will be load, right? So on the top, we'll call it loaded.
Yep.
Right? And on the bottom of that axis, we'll call it unloaded.
Yep.
So unloaded just means body weight. You're not introducing any type of external load to your body.
Yep.
But loaded, right, which is on the top of that plus sign, that means any type of external resistance that is added to your body. A weight vest, a barbell, a dumbbell, a medicine ball, a VIPR, a prowler, an Atlas stone, whatever you want. Like, those are all external resistance being applied to the body.
Correct.
Whereas the 2 bottom quadrants, the unloaded, that's just your body weight.
Gotcha.
So if that's clear for the learner or the listener here, it's like, okay, top is loaded. The 2 top quadrants are some sort of external resistance. The 2 bottom quadrants are unloaded, and they are just your body weight.
Okay.
The x-axis, going left to right, on the left-hand side is linear, right? So on the left-hand side, linear. We'll call that sagittal. Okay. That is what you see on Instagram. That is what everybody's doing in the gym.
Forward and back.
Everything is linear, forward and back or up and down. It's sagittally dominant. But on the other end of that continuum, on the right-hand side of that plus mark, is multi-planar. So, all right, so we've got loaded on top, unloaded on the bottom, linear on the left, multi-planar on the right. So with all of those polarities, the top left quadrant, if you can imagine that in your mind's eye, is loaded and linear. We call it loaded linear training.
Gotcha.
The bottom left is unloaded linear training. The bottom right is unloaded, body weight, unloaded multi-planar training. And the top right is loaded multi-planar training.
Got it.
So if people can understand that, conceptually, it should be pretty easy.
Yeah.
So if I said, well, hey, give me an exercise that is in the top left quadrant, the loaded linear quadrant. It's loaded with external resistance and it's linear. And I said, hey, give me an exercise example of that. And people thought about it and they say, okay, bench press, right. Bicep curl, right. Tricep pushdown, correct. Back squat, correct. So all of that stuff resides in the loaded linear. Unloaded linear, which is just straight down, is a push-up or a chin-up, right? Unloaded multi-planar could be yoga or some sort of dance or a gecko or Spider-Man push-up where you're moving around, right? It's all that stuff that's gymnasts are all mostly unloaded and multi-planar. It's their body weight and they're moving in a lot of different planes of motion potentially. And then loaded, which is the top right, loaded multi-planar training is chores on the farm, right? Digging a ditch, right? That spade of dirt is the load.
You can call that practical training as well, like practical exercise. You got functional and then practical.
Yeah. And so if you look at those 4 quadrants, any exercise done in any way is somewhere in this grid. It's somewhere here. So then we're not ideological about, hey, what camp are you in? And you're throwing grenades at me and I'm throwing grenades at you because our camp's better. It's like, nah. Biology doesn't think that way. Biology can take all of these inputs and ladder up to all adaptive outputs. So if I can cluster all your exercises and scatter plot them, in an instant, Tom, you're going to be able to see where they are in this grid. Most of bodybuilding is where? Well, you'd say, okay, it's loaded and it's linear. So it's the top left. Awesome. But you'll know better than I will that if bodybuilders do nothing but that quadrant and they don't get the other movement vitamins, or at least to some degree, then they're risking not aging well.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a triage of thought. Like, you don't have to spend equal time in each quadrant. Like, a bodybuilder is going to have like 80% or more of their time in loaded linear. Awesome.
Yeah.
But this is a checks and balance and say, hey, can you do some unloaded stuff? Because as soon as you do unloaded bodyweight stuff, you know better than me, type 1 motor control. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing a chin up, that's different than a lat pull down because I have to stabilize the scapula differently.
Yeah.
A push up is different than a bench press because I have to stabilize the scapula differently.
And the spine.
And the spine, et cetera. So these things that are, you know, every quadrant that we have has benefit.
Yeah.
But then we could say we can put power in each of the quadrants. Heck, I can put mobility in each of the quadrants. Because if I said to you, Tom, give me an example of a loaded linear, top left, loaded linear mobility drill. And you might say, how about a band distraction? Mm-hmm. Right? I'm using a band to distract the joint from mobility. Yeah, it's loaded because you got the monster band on your thigh, let's say, right? Yeah. So it could be mobility, it could be even cardio, right? So the mechanics of cardio, if you're doing a rower, if I said to you, where is rowing in the 4Q that I just, you know, kind of explained to you, you'd say, well, I got the flywheel or the oar in the water. So it seems like it's external load. Yeah. So it's probably loaded and it seems kind of linear. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put it in the loaded linear. And I'd say, you're right. And then I'd say, where's running, right? On the treadmill or outside. You'd say, well, it's my body weight. So it's unloaded. And generally, I mean, it's 3-dimensional gait is, so it's multi-planar if you want. Or if I'm just running a straight line, kind of sagittal. So either one, it's unloaded. Yeah. But if I said to you, take a heart of a rower throughout the course of their life and a runner. Yeah. And their heart is different. Right. Because of the mechanical demands of total peripheral resistance, which you're going to get in loaded stuff that you won't get in unloaded stuff. So the 4Q allows us to quickly ascertain what an individual is doing and what movement vitamins they're taking. Mm-hmm. But it also gives us a real good idea of how to justify things scientifically.
I want to take a quick break from today's episode to share something I believe every rehab and performance professional should know about. For years, I saw too many clients go through the same cycle: short-term fixes, temporary relief, and then the same issues coming back again. That's why I built the Advanced Movement Therapist certification. It's not just another course. It's a system that helps you identify the real cause of a client's pain, give them results that actually last, and stand out in a crowded industry. You'll get practical tools and strategies that you can take straight into your sessions so you can help people get better faster. If you're ready to become the go-to clinician in your community, head to amtcertified.ca to learn more. That's amtcertified.ca. Your clients will thank you. And, you know, just for our listeners and the coaches, it's different if we're working with athletes. Sometimes, like, so I'll talk about Michol real quick. So he needs to be very stiff, right? Now he lifts linear, but he also does things multi-directional, multi-planar, like lifting a stone, flexing, and then he's like, you know, bending and twisting. They're carrying stuff. And as much as I would love for him to do more mobility stuff, but if he does too much, we actually might take away some of the advantage he has with the stiffness that he needs for that sport. Right. So anytime he's coming in with pain, I'm going to do just enough mobility stuff to get him away from that threshold of pain so that it doesn't interfere with performance. Because I'm like, I don't want you to go do yoga. It will probably make you weaker. Yep. But then your yogis, like what you said, like unloaded and, uniplanar. Linear. They need to do strength stuff. Because they'll come in with neck pain, back pain, and everything feels tight because they're stretching the hell out of everything. I'm like, you need to do lifts and carries. Yep. Right? And then you got your power lifter that's, you know, loaded, linear. I'm like, we need to move in different planes and do more mobility to kind of balance you out a little bit. But, I mean, and then moving away from the athletes, the general population just needs to fall in the middle.
They do. They do. And and if you're a multi-direction, if you're a football player or a tennis player, you need strength in odd positions. Yes. Because the chaotic nature of basketball or tennis or football or hockey or any one of these require that you need to be you need to be strong in all these positions. The other thing that is a detriment potentially is too much muscle mass. We always say you need as much muscle as you possibly can to achieve a outcome that is elite for the time of the duration of the game, and then no more muscle. Because if you carry more muscle, it makes you stronger. Does it make you effective in the third period or the fourth quarter when you've got to carry this energy expensive material with you all the way through, right? Because you're fighting it. You've got a schizophrenic relationship with muscle. You love it, but you hate it. Right? You love it because it produces force, but you hate it because you got to carry it around.
You got to carry it around, right? It's now
you got more of it.
Right?
You got to carry it around for longer. So there's a schizophrenic relationship that athletes, certain types of athletes, have with muscle. Right now, for certain positions, you need it, right? Linemen, strongmen, I get it, because your burst of energy is 6 seconds, and then, or even 5 seconds. And hey, quarterback, I'm going to protect you for 4 to 5 seconds. If you can't make a play, you're on your own after that, right? So I get that, right? And they need to, but again, they need to be strong in odd positions too, because you got a rush end that's trying to cruise around them. And so the idea of athletes is you need enough. And then to your point about the average human being, the same thing. Like, do you want longevity? It's always funny that muscle mass is now the longevity organ. But when you look at it, it's like, yes, but if you express certain training styles that really push the limits of, let's say, intensity, and push the limits of growth. One of them is mTOR C1 and C2 pathway. They're associated with a shorter lifespan, right? So the idea of more is not necessarily better. And now there's like mTOR inhibitors out there for longevity. So it kind of goes against the grain in terms of, yes, you want muscle to a certain degree, but more of it is not necessarily better.
No, it's true. There's, I think a lot of experts are preaching that because society's so under-muscled.
That's right. It's true.
We got skinny fat people. Like, you look thin, but you're actually just severely under-muscled.
But fitness people again might hear that and go, I need more.
Right. And then the people who have lots, they're like, well, I'm not doing good enough. So my type A personality and my insecurity is just going to kick in now, and I'm not doing enough as I should.
I'm not doing as much as I need. So does that make sense? These 4Q models that kind of help us. And so they're writing our algorithms for us in terms of our AI. I'll give you another quick one if you don't mind. The metabolic one. So imagine now not a plus sign, but you got a cross. So imagine your mind's eye cross. The quadrants above the horizontal line and the cross are smaller, right? And then the bottom areas, the quadrants, are bigger underneath the cross. So again, with the y-axis, you've got intensity as a measure of, let's say, heart rate, let's say. So there's high intensity on top, and then there's sub-maximal into low intensity on the bottom. That is the y-axis going up and down. The x-axis going left and right in your cross. On the left-hand side, you've got steady state. And by steady state, I mean your physiology is maintaining the same physiological state throughout. And then the opposite end of that continuum on the x-axis going left to right, on the right-hand side, is interval, which is you're undulating between different physiological states. So when you have this, you've got now 4 quadrants. So let's unpack this. The bottom left quadrant in your mind's eye, in that cross, is, we'll call it sub-maximal intensity, so on below, steady state, which is on the left, right? Sub-maximal intensity, steady state. Another word for that is zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 cardio. It's steady state, aerobic cardio, and away we go. If you go directly across on the bottom, it's still sub-maximal intensity because you're on the bottom, but now it's interval training. So this, Tom, would be things like activities of daily life. This is where the American College of Sports Medicine is saying, hey, Michol, hey, Tom, do movement snacks. Try to move intermittently throughout the day, and that will be the biggest positive influence on all-cause mortality. Because it's intermittent movement, and that is what they call movement snacks that we need, because it increases NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is going to be super helpful for overall health. Okay, got it. So that is sub-maximal intensity interval training. This is what people did on the farm every day. Like they would just undulate, but it's all sub-maximal stuff, but they'd move throughout the day. So that's in the bottom right-hand quadrant. If you go directly up from there, you get high-intensity interval training, which is HIIT, which is what everybody in fitness thinks that they're doing, but they're not doing HIIT, and I'll explain that in a second.
Good.
Because true HIIT training is high intensity for a bout and a long enough recovery period that you can reconstitute energy, nervous system fatigue, right? So, reconstituting acetylcholinesterase and all that stuff that can recapture acetylcholine. Your sodium potassium channels need to repolarize. So all of that chemistry needs time to recover. And then you need kind of fluid recovery as well. So your ratio is 1 to 4 to 1 to 6. If you're really doing HIIT training. And you know who does HIIT training really well? Olympic weightlifting coaches and track coaches. Because they'll get their people to do a 200-meter sprint and they do nothing for 10 minutes. Nothing, like dead air, right? Nothing. They walk around. Olympic weightlifting coaches might get someone to do 3 hang cleans or 2 hang cleans at near maximal weight, and then they chalk their hands for the next 10 minutes. Fitness would say that is a waste of money. Physiology would say that is brilliant HIIT training. Because what happens is everybody in fitness is not doing HIIT training. They're actually doing the last quadrant, which is high intensity, steady state. Which is you're sacrificing recovery because you're doing an EMOM or an ETOT or a Tabata or a AMRAP. It's awesome, but you're sacrificing recovery for more work. So guess what? Your physiology does not have time to change its state. So it's high intensity, steady state. The positive is your mTOR activation goes way up because you have blood acidosis. That's a first messenger. It sends IGF-1 up and it sends mTOR as a second messenger inside the cell to turn on. mTOR is a powerful growth pathway, massive. But too much mTOR ages the body quicker. So pick your poison, right? And so the same thing, like we have 4 quadrants metabolically, we'd say those are your metabolic vitamins, but make sure you don't spend too much time in one quadrant because that could be a detriment to you. But every one of those metabolic quadrants has a physiological benefit. You just need to know what it is and how you want to spend your time in each of these quadrants.
I mean, looking at, just for everyone listening, let's look at some of the most impressive physiques. You look at sprinters and you look at Olympic weightlifters. Strong, they can throw a lot of weight around and they look good, right? They're moving very quickly, very intensely for very, very short periods of time with lots of rest. But people's mentality is, well, I'm just standing around doing nothing. So therefore I'm wasting time. I should fill this with something else. Right.
And it hasn't been made better by any of the fitness competitions. And I'm a big fan of the fitness competitions. If you love it, it's great. But what fitness competitions do is the clock is running. Right. And so the amount of work that you need to perform, you want to do it as quickly as possible. Well, the only way you do that is if you sacrifice recovery in between each set. And, there's positive and negative benefit to that.
There are some, what I think a lot of people make the mistake is they stay there too long and they do too much of that because they get addicted to it. They start to see the physiological changes. Oh my goodness, like I'm losing weight and I'm looking good. I'm like, great. The first 4 to 6 months, and all of a sudden month 8, everything hurts. You're not sleeping, you're crashing, like you're running on fumes. We can't.
Adrenal fatigue. And then they hear sound bites like, Tom, don't do cardio because it kills your gains.
Right.
It's like, oh my God, I'm never going to touch cardio. I'm like, are you nuts? Because that soundbite is, even though it is factually correct, it's so contextually inaccurate. Right. Because there is some interference with mTOR when you have your aerobic pathways opened up, but the refractory period is like 6 hours. So the better soundbite is, Tom, if you want to maximize your gains, just don't do cardio within a 6-hour window of your weights and you'll be fine. That's really the soundbite. Right?
Your weights.
But if I hear don't do cardio because it kills your gains, and I'm never going to touch cardio, it's like, what? Like you need aerobic pathway. You need AMPK activity. You need PGC1 alpha activity. Like you need this.
You
Right?
need to
For
transport
health and
oxygen.
performance.
effectively.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, it cuts through the dog. These 4Q models really cut through the dogma and the
Yeah.
ideology of things, and they get to the heart of the matter, which is make decisions in a non-ideological way. Like all of these things are useful. Just pick what you want.
Yeah. I mean, that helps. That would help clear up a lot of misconceptions and a lot of bullshit for people and getting caught in these dogmatic camps. That you
100%.
suggested.
Because
What's
you're go ahead.
no? Go ahead.
I was going to say, because your question before was, Michol, when do you spend, we talked about variability. When do you make the decision to go variable
Yeah.
versus not? Well, think about the first 4Q model, a plus sign.
Yep.
We've got two multi-directional, either a body weight or external load
Yep.
loaded. We've got those, right? So at the end of the month, if all my stuff was loaded linear,
Yep.
you might say, all right, is that consistent with your goal? Maybe. Is it consistent with your readiness? Maybe not, because you're doing too much of one thing.
Yep.
And now the system needs a little bit more input from information so that it can actually achieve longevity,
Yep.
right? And not get bogged down with pattern.
Yeah. I mean, even just taking that programming in that model,
Yeah.
you can look at like, okay, today we're doing high load, multi-directional, multi-planar, which will tax the nervous system and it'll tax the body in certain ways. Well, then maybe tomorrow we do a little bit more linear, unloaded, right?
100%.
And then, okay, now we can go up. Now let's load multi-directional, high intensity, and then we go across,
Yeah.
right? So, and even with my training, on the tail end of my 40s, I'll have two relatively
Early 30s, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. I'll still lift heavy, but the next day is very light. I'll do body weight, calisthenics, yoga, ground mobility, more of a recovery, and then I ramp it up a little bit. Maybe I start swinging some kettlebells and playing with some multi-directional stuff. And then as I ramp up the nervous system, then I hit another heavier, more complex day, move a little bit quicker, move a little bit heavier, gymnastics or whatever. And then I peter out. So like my training through the week is undulating because I like doing it. I like doing something every day, but I know I can't load my body the way I used to.
Yeah.
And even with elite athletes, because their job is to perform the sport, not be a weightlifter in the gym.
No.
And this is where we have to, like, dude, I know you want to back squat, but it's horrible. Like your body build is, you can't squat. Like, let's deadlift. Let's do lunges instead. You're a hockey player. You're not a power lifter. We don't need to do back squat. And sometimes they just get pegged, and everyone coming in with the same program, like this doesn't work for you.
Well, and then the question is, are you ever moving at speed in the gym?
Right. Yeah.
And are you ever overloading with speed? Because limb velocity is important, because limb velocity requires a couple things. Limb velocity requires high velocity nerve conduction.
Yep.
Can your muscles turn on and turn off quick? So if you think about the physiology of the nervous system, you know that acetylcholinesterase has to be basically in the synaptic cleft enough to gobble up all the acetylcholine to turn off, right, that action potential and the signal to the muscle. How much of that chemistry has actually been trained? Because I would argue that off is quick. Because limb velocity, if you're throwing or catching or skating or running, if your nervous system can turn off quicker. Because let's say you've trained acetylcholinesterase as an enzyme to gobble up all the acetylcholine and shut off that nerve conduction quick. That will allow your nervous system to turn off, and that'll allow the limb to move fast. Now, if you're saying, that limb might be exposed because it's not stable, that's where force transfer proteins come in. If you took anatomic adaptation and you took a bale of hay or whatever, and you started loading it in a multi-directional environment, you're knitting yourself collagen in every direction around the body, just like the shirt that you're wearing. And it has shape stabilization omnidirectionally, which then allows the system, the nervous system, to say, we can turn off muscles, because when we do, or turn down, they're never off. We can turn down the muscle, right? So we can relax it quicker, knowing that there's still shape stability in the entire system, because our connective tissue or our collagen network is so stabilizing for us. We don't need the muscle alone to do it. That way we can turn off quicker. That's athleticism. And it's a much larger conversation than hey, let's just get your certain lift stronger because nerve and muscle, that's strength. It's like, no. Right? There's a much more of a broader conversation.
Yeah, it's much more complex than that, but the best way we can do is just distill it down into actionable, utility. Yeah. Now you mentioned AI. You said your AI system. How are you working with AI?
So we've got an AI model. So we've created a SaaS model for health and human performance.
Yep.
So for those that don't know what a SaaS model is, don't worry, I didn't know what it was either. So SaaS stands for software as a service, right? So it's a SaaS. Think of it as an intelligence layer for health and human performance. So we've created essentially 8 engines for this technology.
Okay.
So the first engine is an ingestion engine. I'll explain what that is in a second.
Yep.
The second engine is a visualization engine.
Yep.
The third is a query engine. The fourth and fifth are a messaging and experimentation engine. The next one is a recommendation engine. And the last 2 are a coaching engine and a community engine. So all of this in aggregate is a network, an intelligence layer to health and human performance. So I'll quickly describe.
Sure.
The first thing is an ingestion engine. We can ingest any data, sleep data, movement data, blood data, whatever you want. We can ingest it in, right, from various different sources. And when we ingest it in, we can then take it from a huge data lake and we can sequester that information into a nice, neat, organized packet of here's Tom's information, right? There's some movement stuff in there, there's some blood work stuff in there, et cetera. So this is the information on Tom. From there, we've ingested it. From there, we can visualize it. So we can visualize it up, right? What is your information here and here? And then we can start to commingle some of that data together to create kind of almost a virtual you. Like, what is your digital twin telling you, right? So that digital twin will tell you what your current state of, readiness is, right? And so what we can do is that when we have all that information, we visualize it and we commingle it. That's where AI and machine learning can come in and say, let's understand your tendencies, let's understand your history, let's understand where you are, because within that, we can start to make recommendations off of it. And that is going to be the next wave of the future. So if you think about it leading from an emerging future, the emerging future is you and I have a digital twin.
Yep.
And it understands our physiology, both past and current and right now. And with that, we know exactly what we need to do. And what research loves about that is they can actually do experiments on the digital twin and there's no ethics involved, right? So they don't have to worry about harming Michol or Tom because they're just doing experiments on a virtual system and they're aggregating hypotheses from that. And then that'll get sharper and sharper with more fidelity in time. So we're working on some of those constructs right now to be able to take information in, to aggregate and recommend off of it, and then coach individuals in real time. So
if we're looking at 10 years from now, would you say that this is the most exciting thing that is coming down the pike? Or is there anything else?
No.
Yeah, for health.
We work with the country of Singapore.
Yeah.
And there is a lab that we are close with in Singapore, all through Southeast Asia. And we were talking to the CEO of that company about a month and a half ago. And when I asked Chris, the CEO, I said, Chris, what sort of continuous monitoring do we have access to? Because we have intermittent monitoring, right? So, you take, you take snapshots of time on HRV or blood work or whatever. But you've got continuous monitoring as well. Like maybe it's your heart rate for variability. Maybe it's continuous glucose monitoring for your arm. And so he was telling us, because that's his game. They have labs all through Southeast Asia and they're in the assessment game. And they said, well, just like CGMs, right, continuous glucose monitoring, there will be a continuous blood monitor coming down. And I said, Chris, is that theoretical or is this really going to happen? He said, it's really going to happen. So Tom, can you imagine now if you had continuous blood work being done and it's being tested?
Yeah.
And you want to live your life. You don't want to be in front of this stuff. You don't want to be listening to all these podcasts and saying, man, by 7 a.m., I got to read 2 books. I got to take a cold shower. I got to do like 60 things. It's becoming overwhelming now for too many folks.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they're getting data fatigue. And I get it. Because at the end of the day, all we want is to live our life.
Yeah.
And what I would rather is, Tom, you're my guy. You're my coach. I love you. You just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Because I want to spend my bandwidth focusing on my daughter and the fact that I'm going surfing tomorrow and the fact that that's life.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can guide me as a lever, that's better. Right. And we all need levers. And I'll give you 2 examples in business. People who are in business listening to this, you don't do your own taxes and you don't wrestle your own legal affairs. Like we had a widget company that went international and we had some international legal affairs. Sure. We're not going to law school to figure this out. We're going to hire a lawyer. Yeah. That's a lever. An accountant is a lever. A health professional is a lever, and a health asset building person. Yeah. It's not going to manage disease, but it's going to build health assets. Is a lever, and I want to pull that lever so that I don't have bandwidth occupied in that, and they just direct me towards solutions and fast track me because they're in the weeds of all this stuff, the knowledge, all the data. So I don't want to see all the data. Just either flag it to me when it's important or just guide me an experience that addresses this stuff. But I don't want to see it. I want to live my life. And if you're my coach and you said, Michol, your number one goal here is I want you to enjoy your life. And I got you. I'd be like, oh my God, this is such a breath of fresh air because we're inundated with more and more information that I have to now somehow organize. And so I would say that this is the biggest emerging thing in the future, which is, optimization's all the rage right now for a select group of us that are in that bubble. But it's going to be more accessible. And the more it just harnesses that power without having me focus on it all the time, that's going to be the sweet spot, I think, for individuals to be able to navigate the best of their life.
How do you personally protect yourself from, unwanted or undesirable or, lots of options, lots of carrots being dangled in front of you, lots of projects? What is it you do mentally to, I guess, say no to opportunities?
Yeah, I think we're pretty clear on what direction we go. We've got a good team. So, we meet and then we have a focus for the year.
Yeah.
And, having said that, though, I am pretty bad at like, oh, you squirrel, I'm over here. But in saying that, it's usually out of passion, but I know exactly what direction we're going. So I know how to compartmentalize that's cool. I want to dip into that from just a knowledge perspective.
Sure.
I don't want to shift the entire business over to that area and railroad what we're currently doing just to catch all of these things that I'm looking at. So there's a balance between I'm going to sandbox the idea in my brain and germinate on it and still stay the course with the achievable goals versus, jumping from one thing to the next. So, it's just a good team around me.
What do you like to do for fun?
Well, I live in Southern California, so the beach is like half a mile that way right now, and it's sunny right now. So I like to work out. I like to jump in the surfboard. I like to mountain bike.
Yep, nice.
Spend time with family. Those are the big things. And I love work, so it's not as if it's like a daunting thing that I'm in a cubicle like hating life.
Yeah.
I like it. So
what would be your perfect day?
It would involve a nap at one point, I can tell you. It's just like getting up, doing something active, spending some time with the family, and then nap, and then maybe engaging in some fun conversations. But it's those things are kind of fun. You'll have to come down to SoCal here and visit.
No, I'd love it. I'd love to. That'd be great. I'm guessing from a burnout perspective, how do you cope with that, or how do you avoid that? Is it just focusing on the things that you just mentioned, or is there any mindset or any kind of other rituals that you try and stay grounded with?
Yeah. I think in my life, the biggest thing is purpose. Like I don't, we've all been through challenge, no doubt. And I think about my challenges, what's carried me through, and I could think of times like, man, I was way overworked, right? We all have our challenges. Yeah. But what got me through was the singularness of why I'm doing it. Right? Whether that's, work challenges or, whatever, it's why am I doing this? And a lot of times in my life, if it's something beyond myself, it's a lot easier to deal with because you're doing something for some purpose bigger than me. And if it was just about me and my strife and my challenge and my burnout and my this and my that, I think that would affect me a lot sooner and a lot harder. But as soon as I put the context, like it's not about me, right? It's about something greater. we're going to have times where there's no balance. Most of our life is not balanced. The idea is not to strike balance. It's during times of challenge, which we're all going to have, can I endure? Can I endure and get through it? Because what's on the other side, at least for me, was a bunch of awareness, new knowledge, new capacities, new abilities that I didn't have before, mentally, emotionally, socially, that I didn't have before. And it's like the only way is through. And the only way you get through is to endure. And that is lean on folks that love you, if you're so lucky to have that. And, take care of your sleep, take care of your nutrition, the controllables, and then try to put your mind towards something greater than yourself. I think that's always helped me.
Well, I can't think of a better way to finish this show with your sage-like advice. Where can people find you, my friend?
They could go to VIPR.com. They can go to Institute of Motion or follow us on those handles. You can follow me, Michol Dalcourt, on social media as well. So any one of those you'll find us.
That's perfect, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work, your evolution, your persistence in keeping this device alive for the last couple of decades. And then finally everyone's figuring it out. It's awesome.
It's definitely clicking. We're super grateful. So
I'm super happy that we met, and I'm glad we've become friends, and I'm excited to see what you do in the future, my friend. So thank you.
Me too. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Staying Relevant. If you enjoyed it, check out the AMT certification at amtcertified.ca, where we help clinicians and coaches get better results faster. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes and share this with a coach, clinician, or athlete who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep staying relevant. Thanks for listening to this episode of Staying Relevant. If you enjoyed it, check out the AMT certification at amtcertified.ca, where we help clinicians and coaches get better results faster. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes and share this with a coach, clinician, or athlete who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep staying relevant. Thanks for listening to this episode of Staying Relevant. If you enjoyed it, check out the AMT certification at amtcertified.ca, where we help clinicians and coaches get better results faster. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes and share this with a coach, clinician, or athlete who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep staying relevant.